Josh? No, Natalie? Okay, first of all, I'd just like to thank everybody for making all the comments. Again, I think sort of like Tom said, it's nice to hear people. It's nice to have a room full of people that are interested in their children's education. It's been, it's nice. We don't always agree with all the opinions we hear, just as some of you maybe didn't agree with some of the things you heard up at the speaker's platform tonight. But again, it's nice to have the democratic process at work here. I've found it's been very unfortunate that the negotiations, the strike, and the aftermath of all this, has been categorized as a battle between us and them. And it really has been categorized as a battle between us and them, between the GEA and the board. And that's the way it's been looked at. It's the way it showed up in the newspapers. That's the way we read about it. I say that because I think, the reason I say it's unfortunate is because, as I think about the major issues that have been involved here, in the negotiations. Most of the issues have come not because of something that the board has decided upon, not something that the union has decided upon. It's mainly because of decisions made by our state government in Springfield. And, you may think I'm just talking about money, and, that's one of them. The fact that our district has received from the state less than the promised amount of state aid for several years in a row, and honestly, that trend doesn't appear to be changing any. I know none of you have seen where you think that, I don't imagine any of you think you've seen that it looks like it's going to get better. That means our district's been in a financial position, has not been in a position to offer raises in the accustomed amounts without risking financial insolvency in the not too distant future. We worry about that. We worry about, we would have loved to have given, better raises this year, but, we've got to think about the long-term solvency of our district. And the fact that there's been a national trend toward limiting tenure protection to teachers, and that there's a fear that Illinois may follow that trend in the near future. That puts a legitimate fear in the minds of teachers, and it set the stage for a demand for just cause language in the contract. We didn't put that tenure fear there. That wasn't the district that did that. We weren't the ones that said, let's, tenure's going to drop in Illinois. We didn't say that. I think in the time that I've been on the board, and I think Bob can attest to that, this, somebody needs to move around a little bit. Those lights go off and there's no motion. We have not been a board that's been out to get rid of teachers. There's no history of that. We've done what we can, I think, to protect teachers in our district. But again, the state is telling us that, maybe those protections that have been there won't be there any longer. The fact that the state has mandated a new evaluation system and has included law that says that in the event of layoffs, recall must be based upon a teacher's position on a four-tiered system based upon their evaluation history rather than on seniority, has made experienced teachers worry about their future employment with their district. And I think that's a major worry. But, as somebody said that, seniority is the only fair way to go, I can't remember the exact wording, the only fair way to go about layoffs and callbacks. Well, that's the way it's been done, but our state's saying that that's not the way that should be done in the future. It's saying it should be based upon, the evaluation that a teacher earns. We didn't put that out there. That was something that the state put on us. The fact that there's uncertainty over funding levels, not only from the state but from local and federal sources, that's made our district want a long-term contract. That's why we had an agreement over whether it should be a 1 year or a 4 year or a 5 year or a 3 year. We want to be able to make as a board long-term plans. You and your families want to be able to make long-term plans. The board wants to be able to do that. One of the few issues in our recent negotiations in which the state has not been setting a lot of parameters in which we operate has been with regard to health and safety. And even in this area, we're restrained by HIPAA regulations. But if you would have read the papers, the board has done the district has done absolutely nothing to take care of the safety of our schools. We spent months, we spent many dollars trying to repair Lombard. It's a beautiful facility now. Steel, it's a beautiful facility now. Even though we've been, even though maybe there were mistakes on the order in which we built the athletic facility at the high school, it was needed, for one, and for two, we've got a number of teachers who teach in that building. That's their classroom. It's a better classroom than what they were teaching in when it gets open for classes. And we've got, today the building committee, we looked at plans for a new Silas Willard School. We admit, and we've admitted, for years that Silas Willard needs work. That building is not the building we should be having our students in. But we're working on it. You can't just go like that and the building appears. It takes money, it takes time. I say all this because I think that what has been characterized as a battle between the GEA for what it believes are legitimate monetary, job security, and health and safety issues, a battle on the one hand between the GEA, and I agree, those are all legitimate issues. But it's been seen as a battle between the GEA for those issues and a board and administration that has been resistant to give in to those demands is really a battle over how educators can receive basic job securities within a financial and legal framework that is largely outside of our choosing. In the end, in the midst of all the hours of negotiation of collateral damage, I really do believe we accomplished a contract that was probably the best we could do under the circumstances that have largely been imposed upon us. The union has received, among other things, a small raise to the base and a continuance of the present step system. They've received a continuance of retirement bonuses for currently hired employees, a postponement of the time in which the recall rights language would take effect, guarantees that there would be just cause for language should tenure protection be removed. In fact, I think I even found out someplace that it's actually Illinois Supreme Court decisions that says you can't have both tenure and just cause language. And yet there is tenure, and that is a protection. As part of the negotiation, special teachers for the specials classes, teachers have been added to the kindergarten, something we didn't have before, and assurances that the district will do more to address health and safety issues. Those are all things that have been gains. They've been gains for our teachers. They've been gains for us. We've made things better. We've made it a better atmosphere as a result of that. The board, we've also received, I think, benefits from the contract that's been negotiated. Among other things, it's a 4-year contract that allows us to plan better. It guarantees that, there's been a guarantee that discussion would begin on developing a new salary schedule that perhaps gives better wages to our younger employees. There's been a relaxation in obligations for future retirement bonuses. There's language that can allow us in the future to perhaps reform the high school 4-block schedule. And we, admit that there are things that need to be changed there. And there's been a movement toward recall rights language that actually follows state law. That's one of the things that, I've responded to quite a few of you in emails, that one of the things that we can't do is go against what's state law. And there is state law that says that, we have to follow the recall rights language the state has presented. I brought up all this because I wanted to provide some context to the issue that's brought everyone here tonight, or at least most everyone here tonight, and it has to do with the back-to-work agreement that was part of the contract resolution. While I feel that the negotiated contract is a fair one for the present and future strength of our district, and, I do have misgivings since I voted on that total package. And, it has to be remembered that when the union voted, we voted not just for the contract, we voted for the contract and the back-to-work agreement. They were a package deal. You couldn't say, well, I like the contract and don't like the back-to-work agreement. We had to vote for one. I voted for the package, but, since that time I have had misgivings about whether it was the right thing to do. First, and my misgivings come from several areas. Most of them have been mentioned to you by many of you tonight. First, the fact that our students have been, who have been caught in the middle of this, they're going to be missing 6 days of school. That's important. I'm not going to go over all the reasons that you've given. They're important reasons. To offer students less than what they're guaranteed by state code, I think that's wrong, and I think we should remedy that, like many of you said. Second, in addition to students, there are many valued workers in our schools, and we didn't really mention that too much tonight, but, who were not on strike. The bus drivers, the playground supervisors, the crossing guards, they stand to lose 6 days of employment. I think that's important to them. We've mentioned that the 6 non-attendance days, our community stands to lose the state aid. Someone mentioned $500,000. I think that's a pretty accurate estimate of what we could stand to lose. You know, this money, which is paid to our employees, not only helps our employees pay their bills, but in so doing, it's funneled through our community's grocery stores, restaurants, car dealerships, clothing stores. You know, as a community that's already economically challenged, and as a district that complains about the loss of state aid, I don't think we can afford this additional loss. You know, it's already been mentioned that there are, you know, we have teachers in the retirement pipeline who've served us loyally for many years. You know, we're limiting their retirement benefits every year. I'm not going to go into details on that. I think many of you know that already. But, you know, we're limiting what they're going to receive, you know, for their whole, the rest of their lives. And finally, lastly, and I'm sure it's probably not lastly, but probably the most importantly, by shorting our school year, we stand to lose the trust of our students, our staff, and our community at a time when we should be working together. You know, Tom mentioned many things about, you know, how we need to work on that trust, how we need to be open to listening to each other. And, you know, maybe that's a start. You know, Tom mentioned it maybe as being the one issue we can get going forward on. Okay, I think that might be the issue. So, you know, I would like us to reinstate the 6 non-attendance days and develop that 174-day calendar. In saying this, though, I do offer some caution on the calendar and do find myself in kind of a quandary on how we can get there. You know, and it's been mentioned a little bit already, but I'm going to say it again because I think we need to hear this. You know, as far as the calendar, you know, many of you suggested in emails to me that we follow the Knoxville calendar. You know, they started one day after we did, so, you know, our starting times are roughly the same. You know, it must be noted that Knoxville's calendar includes school on Columbus Day, Veterans Day. They have 2 less days of winter break in December. They have they just have 3 days of spring break in April. I think it's just a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. President's Day is their first emergency day, so very likely they'll be going to school on President's Day because, you know, as somebody else said, it snows in Illinois. It's not Florida. And, you know, so, you know, and there's with all that, their calendar, I noticed, has their last emergency day is June 4th. You know, that's much later than what we're used to having school. You know, if our district were to develop a calendar in which the school year ends on June 4th, before summer heat and the summer school programs begin, you know, we heard a lot of good stuff about our 6 weeks of summer school tonight. You know, Mr. LeClaire, what date did you begin this past summer? June 9th. So in other words, we're talking about if we don't finish a school year on June 4th, we don't start summer school on June 9th, and, you know, you finish, what, late July? Something like that?
July 20.
Yeah, so in other words, you know, it's got to be, if we were to make these changes, we've got to figure out a way to do it and finish by June 4th. That's going to require sacrifices. You know, now for the quandary I have. You know, the contract that we negotiated, that the GEA and the board agreed to, the negotiated contract and the back-to-work agreement, as I said earlier, they're a package deal. A majority of both the GEA and the board voted to accept that package. You know, part of the negotiated contract is a clause that says that the contract stays closed for the entire 4 years of the contract. That means it's not open. You know, that was an agreement that we all reached. You know, that agreement, I think, benefits both sides. I mean, in other words, for instance, if our state decides next year to give us 70% of state aid, the union's protected. We can't come and say, hey, look, we don't have money to give you. We're going to have to, you know, not take that raise and that step. We're going to have to go back and say, you know, we can't do it. We can't pay you. So we may have to, you know, I'm not saying we're going to do, you know, we would want to do that, but, you know, I think that, you know, where it sounds like that clause that I just mentioned sounds awful, you know, that's something to protect both sides. You know, that means that we can't bargain on those things. Now, if the contract is open for any reason, and in this case it would be if we made this if we changed the back to work agreement, the whole contract remains open, such that any item in the contract could be bargained by either side at any time during those 4 years. You know, much work, as all of us know, much work and anguish has gone into the adoption of the new contract. You know, I believe strongly it's a fair one. You know, I don't think we can afford a further loss of time and money that further bargaining would entail. I mean, I don't know how we get to the point where we say, we open it we open it to make this change in the calendar, but we don't open it for anything else, but it would be wide open. And I don't see, I can't see how we can do that. Or, I mean, I want guidance. I'd like to hear guidance on it, but I just don't see it. There are other things that were in the contract that were filed by both sides. Those were unfair labor practices. We do not, those were filed, I think, kind of in the heat of the negotiations. We don't want to see those come back. Those cost a lot of money, both for us and for the GEA to defend. That's money we could better spend on programs for our students. We don't want to risk those things coming forward again. And even the calendar I mentioned, could the district be guaranteed that there'd be no grievances over school holidays that might have to be worked? The last time we had a contract, or several years ago when we wanted to work Columbus Day, we had to legally defend a grievance over the fact that we were working on a school holiday. That cost a lot of money. Money, again, I think is better spent on our students. So I guess what I'm saying is that while I would be very much in favor of restoring the calendar to 174 days, and would like to recommend it that we do it, I can't recommend us doing it if it entails the district being subject to additional bargaining, possible work stoppage, litigation, and grievances. All those things take money away from programs that are necessary for our students. I can only recommend us adopting the full calendar if it can be done in a way that guarantees a full school year for our students and a contractual work year for our staff, and not any other bargaining on anything else, any other openings. I mean, it needs to pretty much be a guarantee that we're not going to see those things. Hopefully that can happen. I'd like to talk about it. But again, we've got to have those guarantees, at least I feel I do, if we're going to go forward on it. So I guess that concludes my remarks. I don't have any more to say. I've said enough already.